Familysearch has some activities that will help you find and learn about your Mormon pioneers, as well as other ancestors that were pioneers in different aspects of their lives. This tutorial will show you how to use several different activities to learn more about them. First, I'll cover the Mormon Pioneer activity on Familysearch. Between 1847 and 1868, there were 60,000 pioneers who traveled to Utah as part of the pioneer migration. After you've logged on to Familysearch, click on the Activities menu and choose All Activities. Scroll down to the My Pioneer Ancestors and click on the Activity tile. If Familysearch can determine if your ancestors were Mormon pioneers, it will show you information about each of your pioneer ancestors. For each pioneer, it will show you their picture, birth and death year, and how old they were when they traveled and how long the journey took. For example, here is my second great-grandfather named John Evans, who at the age of 21 left Nebraska, and 75 days later he arrived in Salt Lake City, Utah. That journey of 75 days covered about 1,000 miles of travel. He traveled in 1856. On this activity, you will notice 4 blue links. Let's explore what each of the 4 links do. Clicking on your pioneer ancestor's name will take you to the full Familysearch profile for that person, where you can see birth, marriage, death, and family information. Clicking on View Photos and Stories will take you to where you can see photos, documents, and stories that are attached to your ancestor. Clicking on any of these links will let you view them. If you're lucky, maybe a descendant has written up a biography or shared a story of your ancestor. Click through to read the attached info, and often you'll find, in the written history, more information about their trip across the plains as a pioneer. Clicking on View Relationship and a relationship chart will be displayed. At the top, it will show how you're related to the pioneer. Your name will be displayed on the bottom of the chart, and you can click and scroll with your left mouse button or zoom in and out using the plus and minus icons. The last of the blue links will give you lots of details about the group that your ancestor traveled with. The pioneers were divided up into groups called pioneer companies. For example, my ancestor John Evans traveled for the John Banks Company. Clicking on the link will open the Pioneer Overland Travel website in a separate window. These pages will tell you more about the group that your ancestor traveled with. Make sure you click and read the sources. Here you'll find journal entries of the people your ancestor traveled with. If you're lucky, you might even find them mentioned in someone else's journal. Even if your ancestor isn't mentioned by name, what you read in the sources is the history of your ancestor. Remember that since the company traveled together, any experiences described in one person's journal was likely a shared experience that your ancestor was there to see and experience. For example, a fellow traveler with my ancestor described the following in his journal. Quote, "As we traveled on, the captain decided to stop a day and let the men have a hunt and get some buffalo meat for the camp, and also to let the cattle rest. Quite a number went out. There were 2 men who saw some buffalo feeding at a distance, and they started to crawl on their hands and knees toward them, one behind the other with their guns in their hands. In drawing the guns through the grass, something caught the hammer of the gun of the man who was behind, and the gun was discharged. It shot the head man through the thick part of the thigh. The weather being warm, they could not save him, and he died and was buried there. Out of all the men who went, they only got 1 buffalo." Close quote. Also on this page, you can click on the Individuals in this Company tab to see a list of everyone who traveled together. Scroll down and find your ancestor, and click on their name, and it will show you the other family members who are traveling together. For example, my ancestor John was traveling with his wife and their baby daughter, who they named Mary. Clicking on the baby's name, I can see that she was born in September. Since this company didn't arrive in Salt Lake City until October, I can see that her mother, Mary, who was my second great-grandmother, gave birth to her while on the trail. You'll notice to the right and left of your pioneer ancestors are some arrows. Clicking on them will show you each of the pioneers that Familysearch was able to find. For example, for me, it located 20 different family members. 12 of the pioneers it found are all direct ancestors of mine, and 8 of the profiles are for children of my direct ancestors. For those that have many pioneers, I'd suggest you make a chart that lists their names, age of travel, and show how you're related to each of them. You can then read more of their histories and choose which of your pioneer ancestor names you're going to take on trek with you to share their history with others at youth conference. Next, we'll go over another activity. Click on Activities, All Activities, and scroll down and choose Missionaries. This activity is very similar to the Pioneer activity, so I won't go into as much detail. Of interest is the blue box labeled View Missionary. Clicking on it will show you detailed information about your missionary ancestor. For example, here is the page from my grandmother, Anna Martha Lewis. She was called as an early sister missionary at the age of 19 to leave the hot weather of Arizona and serve in the cold winters of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was so excited to discover on the missionary website a photo of my grandma as a young sister missionary walking along a snowy road with her companion. There she is on the right, smiling at the camera. You don't have to have crossed the plains to be a pioneer. My grandma was very much a pioneer as a sister missionary 100 years ago. The next family search activity is Women of Faith. Here it will list the female relatives who served missions, lived in Nauvoo, or were mentioned in important church historical events like the founding of Relief Society. This is such a wonderful resource to learn more about the extraordinary women in your life. The next activity shows if your ancestors lived in Nauvoo during the time period when the saints were living there. If you find that you do have Nauvoo ancestors, click through to see where they lived and visit their family search profiles to learn more about their history. There is also an activity called Joseph Smith Papers. On this activity, you can click on the View Church History Bio. For example, I'll click on that link on a relative of mine to see a biographical summary written by the Church History Department that has links to church history documents that mention this particular relative. My third great-grandfather was named Benjamin Lewis. He was one of 17 people killed at Haun's Mill by a mob in 1838. This page is the history of his younger brother David, who was there at the mill but survived the massacre and later became a pioneer that settled in Utah. At the bottom of the page you see links to each place in church history where this person is mentioned. For example, here's a link to a historical document called Revelation Book Number 2, which apparently was used for the preparation of the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants and to record other church history information. Of interest to me was the line of handwritten text on page 3, where the history reads, Hiram Comstock said to David Lewis, I am the man that shot your brother. If accurate, listed here is the name of the person who killed my ancestor. You never know what you'll find as you look deeper at these source records. The last activity on Family Search that I'll mention is the Famous Relatives activity. Here you can see how you might be related to pioneers of industry, the arts, science, or historical figures. These people will usually not be direct ancestors, but instead, Family Search will still show you how you're related to each person. Click on a person of interest and zoom and pan to see how you're related. For example, if Family Search's information is accurate, then President Thomas Jefferson is asserted to be my second cousin 8 times removed. By zooming and panning, I can see how we are connected. Be aware, however, that the info is only as accurate as the information that Family Search users have researched and entered. As you go back further in time, you might not find accurate source information to prove the relationship. Anytime you find a person that you connect through that is missing source documentation means that likely the tree is not to be trusted as being historically accurate until more research is completed. Nonetheless, it is very interesting and can help bring history alive for you by indicating a distant family relationship between you and someone in history. As you've seen, Family Search has a wealth of easy-to-use activities to help you learn more about your ancestors' life and history. I hope this video has helped you learn about your family and the role these individuals played as pioneers in various aspects of their lives. It's interesting to think of their trials and experiences and gain a deeper appreciation for their lives and sacrifices.